A letter to Granny. Paul Rogers and John Prater. Lucy lay in her bed, in her room, in her house, in her street, and thought of the whole town spread out around her. She fell asleep listening to night noises, distant cars and dogs barking into the dark, and thinking about tomorrow when Granny would come. The moment she woke, she knew something was different. Where had all the houses gone? The streets, the town? From her window, she could see nothing but sea. She ran out of the house barefoot onto the sand, past the garden, past the front door, under her own bedroom window. Breakfast is ready, Mom called. Lucy climbed back up the cliff, leaving a necklace of footprints around the island. The postman's late, Dad said. I expect traffic's bad, said Mom. I'm going out to watch the whales, said Lucy. That's where my school used to be, she thought. Over there is where the road was. She picked up a starfish and there she laughed as two crabs scuttled away. That's where Mr. and Mrs. Horner lived. At lunchtime, Lucy told Mom and Dad all about the rock pools. During puddling, there was a knock at the door. I'll go, said Lucy. An enormous liner was anchored off the front garden. On the steps stood its captain. Pardon me, he said. I think we're lost. I can't work out where I am. This is 101 Akira Road, said Lucy. Ah, thank you, said the captain. Sorry to trouble you. After lunch, Lucy's parents worked in the garden. Look at these lupins, complained Mom. Look at those dolphins, called Lucy from the beach. Suddenly she remembered Granny. However, would she get here now? Someone would have to tell her. At her toes, Lucy saw an old bottle. She hurried indoors for pen and paper and wrote, Dear Granny, I can't wait to see you. Our new address is 101 Akira Road, Island. Please come soon. Love from Lucy. Then, rolling the message up, she slipped it into the bottle and pushed it out to sea. That was when Lucy felt the first drops of rain. The sky grew dark, the sea grew wild, and soon Lucy was hurrying to the house for shelter. From the window she watched the storm. Now Granny will never make it, she thought. Then, way out in the distance, she spotted a small boat. One moment it was riding a giant wave. The next it was lost from sight. But gradually it grew bigger and bigger until Lucy could make out her granny wave. "Hello, Granny," she called, running to the water's edge. As the rain stopped, together they climbed the path to the house. "You look a bit wet," said Dad. "Did you have to wait for the bus?" After tea, Lucy took Granny on a tour of the island. She showed her the crabs and gulls, the rock pools and starfish. "Look," said Granny, "I've something for you. Hold it to your ear. What do you hear?" So Lucy pressed the warm-colored, soft-looking, cold hard shell to her ear, and in it she heard the sound of the sea. Then she sat on Granny's lap, on the deck chair, on the beach, on the island, and together they watched the ripe sun go down. Where it was time for Granny to go, Lucy waved her goodbye from the gate. She watched her climbing into the boat and sailing slowly, slowly away. "Time for bed," said Dad. "I expect Granny will steer by the stars," said Lucy. That night, Lucy fell asleep listening to the sighing of the sea and dreaming all about tomorrow. Land of Dreams by Michael Foreman. High in the mountains above the jungles, deserts, and cities of the world lived an old man and a boy. They lived in a valley of golden summers and silver streams. In winter, everything was covered in a deep blanket of snow. In the higher slopes around the valley, it was always winter. Sometimes a great wind blew through the mountains, bringing snatches of songs and sleet traces of sound from the people far below. Sometimes greater winds blew through the mountains, bringing snatches of song and slight traces of sound from the people far below, as the winds also brought fragments of their hopes and dreams, and in the cold mountain air these could just be seen like breath on a frosty morning. These fragments would be blown into snowy drifts and remain forever, unfinished dreams and lost hopes among the clouds, but not quite forgotten. The old man and the boy loved to explore the drifts and uncover the dreams. They would push and pull them into their valley, which became a vast store of bits and pieces. A scrapyard of dreams. Sometimes pieces could be fitted together, and the old man and the boy would build and build. On warm days, the entire collection would disappear, only to reappear in the cold night air. The old man and the boy worked well together. Between them could solve most of their puzzles. When they had completed the shape of the dream, they sent it sliding off down the mountain to the warm air, where it would become invisible once more and drift around the world and make people smile without knowing why. Then one day a giant wandered into the valley. He was very sad. "I've been a giant for 1,000 years. For 1,000 years," he moaned to the old man and the boy. "In the old days, it was great. I used to stomp about and drink in the dreams of everyone. Now, no one thinks of me. Earthquakes, thunder, and natural disasters get all the credit. Can we be any help?" asked the boy. "No one can help a giant," said the giant with a great sigh that caused an avalanche at the end of the valley, revealing more buried dreams. "But you can be a big help to us," cried the old man. "Stay a while and rest." So the giant made himself a shelter from the rubble of dreams and marveled at the way it disappeared on warm, sunny days, but always returned to protect him from the cold. After a while, the giant began to help his new friends with their work, taking some of the most interesting pieces of dream to embellish and extend his home. With the giant's help, really big pieces could be recovered and assembled and sent off, skidding and disappearing into the world. Then one day they discovered that the top 500 feet of the highest mountain was in fact the rubble of a massive dream. There was no room in the valley for such a big dream, so they had to piece it together in the swirling mist and snow. It was so enormous they could not see the overall shape. After many hours, it was finished. The boy and the old man and the giant moved to one end of the dream and pushed. Slowly the dream began to move, then slid faster and faster. Suddenly, the giant raced after the dream and leapt aboard. The dream and the giant shot out of the mist and could be seen quite clearly before they vanished into the clouds. Below, the giant shouting joyfully, "Now they'll remember me." The old man and the boy returned to their valley. The giant had found his dream. "Perhaps one day," said the old man, "you will find your dream and follow far from here. But I've found my dream, said the boy, as the mountain slowly vanished in the warmth of his bed, and he turned over smiling without knowing why.